What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, tactics, ballistics the right way, with God Almighty at the center, biblical Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. Military, law enforcement, private security, contracting, competition shooting, hunting, a lot of other stuff. Bio bullet points in the show notes. I try and bring that training and experience here to you guys to serve you. Today, I'm going to talk about the importance of redundancy in your go-to core battery. This is not an episode on the core battery, what a core battery is. I've talked about that before. I've talked about the importance of a core battery and what is in a core battery. But I think this is worth talking about because I see it less often than I think it should be. If you're serious about shooting, gunfighting, firearms for protection, firearms for hunting, let's say that's you. You think of firearms as tools as I think of them to both protect yourself and those around you. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Whoever sheds man's blood by man, his blood shall be shed. And for putting food on the table, providing for yourself and those around you, right, as core tools. Now, if you're just in it to Instagram flex or to, get the latest and greatest cool whatever gun tuber thing person is plugging, then this is not really for you. But if you're into guns as hardcore tools for real-world stuff, I think this will be for you. Because a lot of people, they get a gun and they shoot it a little bit, and then the next cool gun comes out that's, in black multicam, or all the YouTubers are pushing because they got a bunch of money. Like, look up Leviathan Group, and they got a bunch of money to push a certain gun, so it's everywhere on all the GunTube glitterati videos. And they get that gun. And then maybe that one's a 2011 style gun, which I love. And the next thing that comes out's the latest and greatest new and improved, polymer striker-fired handgun. And the next thing you know, the industry's pushing micro 9mm again, or macro 9mm, because they pushed a micro 9 and then they push a macro 9, a macro micro 9, when you could have just gotten a full-size gun to begin with. But anyway, you get what I'm saying here. What I'm going to submit to you is, once you have a pretty good idea of what kind of, we're going to take fighting handgun, whatever fighting handgun is for you, your everyday carry, right? The gun you're most likely to have day to day if something goes wrong. If your personal peanut butter and chocolate hits the fan, not talking about societal collapse or something, but like you get into a nasty altercation, you have this gun on you. It's a gun you're most likely to have. Before you go out and buy the next coolest gun that's a different platform or whatever, I would submit to you, consider buying a very similar gun set up in a very similar way to the gun that you already have. Two of a very similar gun. They don't have to be exactly the same. Like, they can be different colors or whatever. If you want the next cool Gucci camouflage, this would be a good application for that. Just get a similar platform, but you get what I'm saying. For instance, when I was a commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters, I would generally carry a 2011 style gun, an STI, way before they were the hot thing, right? Back before John Wick had one in a movie and anybody knew what they were unless you were hardcore into competition shooting, which I was. But almost nobody, as far as duty guns went, carried a 2011. I did that a long time ago. And I did it because they're a fantastic platform, especially for CONUS, Continental United States operations. I had two STI 2011 set up very similarly. That's one example. I currently carry EDC. My go-to EDC is a 6 Sauer 226, single action only. I have two of those. I'm blessed to have two of those, right? I have one, and I have another one very similar to ZevTech, but it's still a SIG single action only. Very similar flat face trigger, very similar optic. They're both similar optics, set up a similar way. Set up for the same ammunition, same grain weight of 9mm. You get the idea, right? So why would you do this? Because guns break. And guns break, especially if you train with them hard. If you haven't broken a gun, you probably aren't training hard, to be honest. Guns break. STI 2011 is maybe one of the best guns on the market. Guess what? I've messed them up. If it's your go-to fighting gun, you should have redundancy. You should have a spare. Yes, even Glocks break. Or if you're serious about it, let's just say you went to a training class and you shot a couple of 1,000 rounds in a week and you're on your way home. That gun started to malfunction in the class. You don't have time to clean it. Well, you have a spare to put in your holster that's set up very similarly to the gun you're training with until you get that gun a good deep clean. You get the gunk out of the firing pin channel. Yes, Glocks malfunction. Right, you get the idea. You have redundancy there. If one breaks, if one you have to send it in for repair, let's say you have a gun that you love that's your go-to EDC gun, then you have to send it back to Smith & Wesson. I like Smith & Wesson M&Ps. They're a little dated now, but they're still a good gun. That was my duty gun for a long time ago, back when it was like Glock or M&P. That was your only two real choices. But you get the idea. You got to send it back to Smith & Wesson. They do good work. Usually, a lot of times, they repair your gun for free. I don't know if they still do that, but in days of yore when I sent guns in. Let's say you send it in. Okay, well, you're out of that gun for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the turnaround time is. What if you never get it back? What if some crazy thing happens in the meantime? Having two, so you send one in, but you have one set up very similar as a backup, right? That's a big deal. That's probably more important than having a completely different gun that's cool and hot right now that you don't have much training or experience with. So having redundancy there. AR-15, you could choose something else, right? But it's America's rifle. It is the go-to fighting rifle of our time. You could argue whether that's good or bad. It just is, right? It's the go-to fighting platform of our time until it gets replaced by the M7. That seems very slow as a rollout, but they're affordable, they're available. They're not the best platform in my opinion. They're not my favorite. But over the past 70 years, they've had a lot of kinks worked out. In economy of scale, they're very affordable. They're the gun to beat. One of the good things about them is they have a mil spec, and they have very similar ergonomics. Now, I think you should know how to run an AK as a threat weapon, but maybe borrow buddies if you're not there yet as far as owning one or having one or using one. But before you got like a good AR that you've set up and you're like, I'm going to go out and get an AK now. Maybe get a second AR. Maybe get one. It could be slightly different, right? But again, the ergonomics are going to be the same. If you have one set up with an LPVO with an illuminated reticle and you have one set up with a red dot, right? They're close enough. You can use them. The manual of arms is not going to be significantly different. If you've got one that you really like, since something happens, you can probably mix and match, right? If you strip the extractor, which is a fairly common thing with ARs, you can punch the extractor out of one and replace it in the other. And you can use that one until the other one gets back up. If you, again, go to that training class or shoot a competition and it gets filthy, well, then you have another. One's your truck gun. What, somebody breaks into your truck and steals your gun. Okay, well, you have another one, right? Stuff gets stolen. It could get stolen from your house, too. Let's say you have one in your house and it gets stolen. Well, hopefully one is in your truck as your truck gun, because guns generally don't do you any good in the safe because you almost never have time to go to a safe and get one if something really bad happens. Like your peanut butter and chocolate hits the fan. Personally, you're probably not going to have time to go to your safe and open it up and load your gun and wherever. You might, but I doubt it. So, like having that redundancy. One gets stolen from your house, you got one in your truck. One gets stolen from your truck, you got one in your house. Stuff gets stolen, right? Just part of life. The point is you have that redundancy. Now, you probably don't need redundancy in everything. I'm talking about your core go-to guns, whatever that is. But a case for that redundancy in your core important firearms. Right? If you hunt for sport, like you're not using it to feed your family, you don't even like the taste of venison, you do it because you want antlers. Look, there's way worse hobbies to have, right? I'm not going to put you down for that. That's not what I do. But if that's what you do and, something happens to your hunting rifle, it breaks or whatever, and you miss that hunting season, no big deal. If you rely on it or you think you might in the future if times get bad to feed your family, you probably should have some redundancy in your hunting hunting rifle, whatever that is, right? Again, it doesn't have to be exact, but similar. It could even be a different caliber as long as it's set up the same. You have a good center fire bolt action rifle. Maybe one's in 243, maybe one's in 308. Set up similar, safety's in a similar configuration, right? There you go. It's good. Let's say you do have a favorite and something happens. You're going on a big, expensive hunting trip, and on your way there right before something happens with your rifle or your optic. Well, you can take the other one or mix and match the optic because you have a similar setup. You get the idea, right? Redundancy. And on that, I think I'm being redundant in this. Now, if you're not there yet or you don't have the budget for this, another good option is to have a good amount of redundancy in spare parts. Spare parts are generally nowhere near as expensive as an entirely new rifle. So be familiar with your platform, and you'll do this by training, especially if you go to a training class where a lot of people have a similar firearm. But common parts that break, like extractors, like small pins, a trigger return spring in many guns, including a Glock. Things that wear out just as a due matter of course, whether anything breaks or not, right? You're supposed to change the recoil spring. I think in the older generation Glocks, like 1 through 4 or 1 through 3 is like every 2,000 or 3,000 rounds. So if that's your go-to handgun, you should probably have a few extra recoil springs. They're, probably less than $10 still. And especially if you train, if you shoot a box at your indoor range twice a year, maybe you'll never shoot it out. But for somebody that trains, you can wear one of those out in a training class. So having a few extra springs, that's pretty important. Part of this redundancy, I'm a big fan of if you're going to run an optic, and you probably should on your handgun in 2026 if you're serious about fighting with a handgun. If you have an optic, you should have coat-witnessed iron sights so that when your optic goes out, you use the irons. Right? You just have a gun now that has iron sights. You haven't lost the ability to aim with your handgun if you only had an optic with no backup iron sights. But on top of that redundancy, just have a spare optic. Have your better one as your go-to day-to-day, but then have red dot optics that are decently reliable, like a Holosun, are fairly affordable, cheaper than an entirely new gun setup. So until you get that setup, have that optic first, because that's one of the things that's more likely to break than the gun. And then when you get a whole new gun, you can put that optic on it. But having that redundancy in optics, that's kind of important. Small parts that generally wear out, and that could be different on any gun. But most guns will have certain things that wear out or that break more frequently than others. If you have an AR, if that's your go-to fighting rifle, probably a good idea if you don't have an entirely different gun to cannibalize. You can just have an entirely new bolt carrier group. In fact, if you're going on a deployment or something, or going out as a contractor on long missions, I would encourage you to just have an entirely separate bolt carrier group in your pack or in your kit, in your gear, because a lot of the things that will break are those small parts that are in that bolt carrier group, extractors, springs. Heck, I've seen entire bolt carrier groups break, like the main part, the bolt carrier group actually come apart. Just having an entirely new one. So even if you don't know what's wrong with it, you're having problems, you just take that out and put the new one in. Right? So stuff like that. Redundancy in your go-to fighting or food on the table firearms. Again, it doesn't have to be everything. Or if you have an old Mosin Nagant that you just like to bring to the range because it's super loud and obnoxious, you probably don't need 2 Mosin Nagants. But you get the idea here. It doesn't need to be a long episode, but I think it's an important episode. So until you go out and buy an entirely new platform because it's super cool and Gucci and what everybody's talking about, do you have a backup for your go-to fighting X, Y, or Z? That's what I wanted to kind of drive home here today. Your tactical tip of the day, if you are a 1911 or a 2011 guy, a lot of those use the original internal extractors. Those have to be tuned. This is one of the things, talking about knowing your platform, that if you shoot a lot, you're going to have to change or you're going to have to tune. And it's not like something you can just swap out with a brand new one. They have to be tuned. So once you have one that's tuned in a 1911 or 2011 with an internal extractor that's running well and it's tuned, before you need to, take that one out because that one's pre-tuned. It's working well. It's not worn out yet. And put in the new one, tuning it when it's not a crucial time and have that one tuned. Tune it. It's not a crazy hard process once you know how to do it. So now you have two. That way, if something breaks, you're not, out a gun. You just swap out the extractor. You can't just swap it out with a new one. You have to tune it first, which requires shooting, which unless you can just shoot in your yard, you have to go to a range. You have to have time, right? It's something you need to be able to do and test. So when you have a long range session and you have a good tuned extractor, have a spare extractor that's new and then tune it. It's not hard to do. It just does take some time. So again, know your platform. You have two tuned extractors. That's your tactical tip of the day. Your tactical verse of the day. This one, the 10th commandment, you shall not covet, right? That's just the first part of the commandment. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. One of the big things being pushed in today's culture is class warfare. Oh, they have this and you don't. So what? You're not to covet. As long as they didn't steal to get it, or as long as you're not stealing, right? And what does the Bible say? Be content with what you have. It's not about what your neighbor has. You shall not covet your neighbor's X, Y, or Z. You shall not covet. Coveting is not bad for that person only. It's bad for you. It may be bad for that person if you covet so much you commit a crime or you do something bad to that person, but it's bad for you. It's bad for your heart condition. It's bad for your soul if you're always thinking, I don't have enough and I need what somebody else has. It's applied to anything, right? Don't covet your neighbor's gun. If he has a gun that you like, cool, shoot it, train with it, see if you like it, and then save up and buy it. But don't covet it. Beware of envy, hatred. But you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.